The hologram tower crackled to life in the center of the broken city. What remained of the sky was washed in amber twilight, but the projection lit the streets like a second sun. Civilians scattered, instinctively ducking for cover, though they knew the beam was not meant to kill. Not yet. The towering figure of Commander Zertov materialized, his four arms folded across a plated chest of cerulean armor. His face, reptilian and sharp, was stretched into what passed for a grin among the ground species. A slow, tooth-filled leer that made even the boldest humans feel like prey. This transmission, his voice boomed, translated into Earth standard and broadcast on every frequency, is brought to you by the mercy of the sovereign ground ascendancy. In a bunker beneath the ruins of old Detroit, Major Eric Stone watched from behind a fractured wall, eyes narrowed. The hologram flickered, revealing thermal footage. Human fighters darting through abandoned buildings, rifles slung low. The view zoomed out, revealing a ground aero patrol above them. Then, without ceremony, the fighters were incinerated by a pinpoint plasma strike. Gone in half a second, Zertov let out a guttural laugh, and a translated chuckle echoed through the city speakers. Such bravery, such misplaced confidence. His grin widened. We applaud Earth's warriors, your snipers, your stalkers, your old tricks. But this is a new era. We see all. We hear all. We kill from orbit. Your sharpshooters are no more than relics. Children with sticks trying to strike the stars. The feed cut out. In the silence that followed, Stone exhaled slowly. The others in the bunker didn't speak. There was nothing to say. That makes 5 teams in 7 days, Lieutenant Ramos muttered finally, brushing dust off his sleeve. They're hunting anyone with a scope. They're not hunting, Stone replied, his voice quiet and bitter. They're baiting, mocking. He stepped over to the rusting comms table, flicked a few switches, and stared at the dimly glowing console. The resistance wasn't gone. Not yet, but it was dying, 1 unit at a time. The ground didn't need to kill them all, just enough to make the rest out. Outside, the city wore its wounds like open sores. Half-crushed vehicles littered the streets. Drone towers loomed at the skyline's edge, scanning endlessly. No fighter jets, no satellites, no reinforcements. Just silence and the faint mechanical hum of the oppressors. They've got humor now, Stone said. That's new. Last year, they didn't even bother addressing us. Maybe they think we're entertaining, Ramos replied darkly. They think we're done. Stone tapped a finger against the console. He didn't look up as he said it, but they forgot one thing. What's that, sir? He looked at the younger man, eyes cold and distant. They forgot who taught us to disappear. Ramos blinked. You don't mean... I do. Silence again. Somewhere nearby, the rubble shifted, and a distant ground hover patrol rumbled through the avenue like a prowling beast. No one's seen him in years, Ramos said carefully. He's not even listed on the active rolls anymore. Last report said he went off-grid after the Singapore push. Stone didn't answer. They say he... I don't care what they say. He's not a ghost. He's not a myth. I trained beside him. I watched him drop targets from beyond visual range with nothing but a modified longbolt and wind sensors. They called him Ray for a reason. Ramos frowned. Even if he's alive, how will we even reach him? Stone looked at the map projected onto the wall. A dim outline of North America, riddled with ground occupation zones and forbidden sectors. You don't, he said. I do. 3 days later, Stone stood at the edge of a wind-blast ridge in what had once been the Rocky Mountains. The sky was clearer here, though the air held a strange stillness, like even nature had learned to tread carefully. He'd trekked nearly 20 kilometers without using powered transport, careful to avoid sensor nets and patrols. The datapad in his pocket showed nothing but static. There were no beacons here, no transmissions, no life, and yet he waited. The sun dropped lower, casting jagged shadows across the valley. Just as Stone turned to leave, a soft crunch of gravel behind him froze his step. He didn't reach for his weapon. He knew better. A figure emerged from the rocks, not suddenly, but slowly, like a memory crawling back into the world. dressed in faded gray and brown, streaked with dust and brush. The man blended into the terrain so perfectly it was as though the land itself had birthed him. Aaron Falk, call sign Wraith. His beard was thicker, hair longer than Stone remembered, but his eyes were the same, cold, quiet, and utterly unreadable. "You're supposed to be dead," Stone said. Falk didn't smile. "Aren't we all?" Stone nodded, swallowing the knot in his throat. "We're losing. The ground mock us in the open now. They've turned every human kill into a broadcast event. They're trying to provoke us," Falk said. His voice was calm, like still water over deep stone, trying to draw us out of the dark. "It's working. They've almost bled the resistance dry. They think we have no more teeth, especially no more shooters." Falk looked out over the valley. "That's their mistake." Stone hesitated. "We need you." "No," Falk said, eyes narrowing slightly. "You don't need me. You need them to believe I'm still out there, that the mud still watches them, that their helmets aren't thick enough, that somewhere out there, someone's still waiting for shot." "Then come take it," Stone said. "One more mission, one message." Falk didn't answer for a long time. The wind tugged at his cloak. The silence between them grew heavy. Then he asked, "Who's the loudest one?" "Commander Zertov," Stone said. "He wants to be famous. He's always on the feeds. Visits calm towers personally." Falk's jaw tightened slightly. "I've watched their patrols," Stone continued. "They've grown lazy, confident, but still cautious enough to stay airborne. You need to get close to a broadcast zone to take a real shot. Then I'll need time, terrain, and no interference." "You'll have it." Falk looked at him finally. There was no joy in those eyes, no vengeance, just the precision of a man who'd spent his life perfecting one thing, ending it. "I'll need a rifle," he said. "You still have yours, don't you?" "I said I need a rifle," Falk replied. "Not a relic. Something new, quiet, punch heavy." Stone nodded slowly. "I'll get it to you." Falk turned, already fading back into the rocks. "You won't see me again. Not until it's done." Stone watched the terrain swallow him whole. That night, back at the command cell, Stone activated the old black channel, the one buried beneath defense protocol layers and quantum encryption. It hadn't been used in years. The message was brief. No names, just an ID string and one phrase. "The Wraith walks." Ramos leaned against the doorframe, his face pale. "So it's true." Stone didn't turn. "The ground think the war is over. Isn't it?" Stone finally looked up, eyes burning with something fierce. Something dangerous. Not if he's out there. Not if he starts shooting. The screen flickered with static. Then, for the briefest second, an old Earth emblem flashed. A skull wrapped in a sniper's cloak, crosshairs behind it. The cave was shallow, just deep enough to hide from orbit. Above, a surveillance drone passed overhead with a low, mechanical whine. Its sensors scanned for heat, motion, magnetic anomalies. Anything not in its stored temple of the valley. Aaron Falk didn't move, beneath layers of camouflage netting and passive cooling gel. His body read as cold rock. Even his breath was slow, nearly imperceptible. He had learned long ago how to disappear, not with technology, but with discipline. Machines hunted by pattern. He thrived in chaos. When the drone moved on, he let out a faint breath and resumed cleaning the rifle. It was a Frankenstein's monster, a human frame, a ground barrel, and a scope retrofitted from scavenged orbital glass. No tracking software, no energy signature. The projectile was simple, one hardened kinetic slug, honed with nano fins for spin stability. Everything about it was outdated, primitive, and that's what made it lethal. A hollow emitter beside him flickered as Major Stone's voice came through in low-band burst. No visuals, just static and syllables. "Relay tower, Sector 14. Zertov visiting in 5 days. Confirmed. Exfil not guaranteed." Falk stared at the message for a long time. Then he shut it off. He didn't care about exfiltration. He wasn't doing this to return. He was doing this because they'd forgotten. The ground had conquered Earth's skies and networks, crushed its armies, and broadcast their victories like theater. But they had never understood the patience it took to lie motionless for hours, the calculation behind every breath, the ritual of aligning one man's will with one bullet's flight. They had forgotten what a single shot could do. He stood, slinging the rifle across his back. The mountain behind him swallowed the light, and as he moved deeper into its shadow, even the birds fell silent. The next 3 days were consumed by preparation. He moved at night, using forgotten trails and collapsed subway tunnels. Along the way, he scavenged what few items remained in abandoned outposts: old MRE packs, a data knife, a vial of adaptive camo gel. In an old bunker north of the ground perimeter, he found what he had hoped still existed: a map, physical paper, folded and water-stained, made by a resistance cartographer who had died months earlier. Handwritten notes dotted the margins: wind patterns, patrol cycles, weather influence zones. All things ground algorithms ignored. All things Falk read like scripture. He traced a line toward Sector 14. The terrain was favorable: broken ridges, dry riverbeds, dense debris fields in the Battle of Denver. If he kept low, timed it right, he could reach the outer edges undetected. He folded the map, tucked it inside his vest. At the far end of the bunker, a cracked mirror leaned against the wall. For the first time in weeks, he looked at himself. The beard was thicker now, salt overtaking pepper. His eyes were ringed in gray and silence. No medals hung from his chest, no rank insignia, just a man with a rifle and a name the enemy had tried to forget. He touched the edge of the scope and whispered, "One shot." Then he disappeared again. Sector 14 rose like a wound on a landscape. Twin towers spiked upward into the sky, wrapped in concentric rings of shielding and sensor webs. Between them, ground technicians moved in rhythmic patterns, organic, yet mechanical, always observed. Falk lay prone beneath the belly of a collapsed transport, 3 kilometers away. Dust caked every inch of his body. A thin mesh covered his face, disrupting visual and thermal scans. He hadn't moved in 6 hours. The scope showed him everything: every angle, every elevation, the patrols, the pattern, even the moment when the ground guard scratched beneath his chest plate. A motion repeated every 12 minutes, like clockwork. Falk made no notes. He simply remembered. Zertatha's arrival was expected at midday 2 days from now. The relay tower would go live, amplifying the broadcast across half the hemisphere. Security would double. So would vulnerability. The ground, for all their dominance, had grown predictable. He ate only enough to stay sharp, drank only what he had to, slept in short bursts, wrapped in silence. Once, a patrol wandered within 30 meters of his position. One ground scout even paused, looking around. Falk didn't blink. The scout moved on. He knew how to wait. He had once lain motionless for 38 hours during the Battle of Puebla, waiting for a target to emerge from a bunker. The shot had stopped the siege. No one even knew he had taken it. That was the point. This time would be no different. Except this time, the entire planet would hear On the 5th day, the skies buzzed with heightened activity. A long, humming dropship descended toward the central plaza of Sector 14. Ground banners flickered to life on nearby structures. Ceremonial formations gathered. Falk tracked every movement through the scope, calculating wind shear, atmospheric density, target elevation. Zertatha emerged with flourish, flanked by armored guards. He addressed the crowd in their native tongue, and though the word were alien, the tone was unmistakable, boastful, proud, smug. The sniper adjusted the scope. Zertatha moved toward a raised platform, facing a broadcast relay surrounded by hard light shielding. A technician toggled the comms. The relay hummed to life. The commander raised all 4 arms, voice amplified. This day, his voice boomed in multiple languages, marks the final extinguishing of Earth's resistance. Let them hide. Let them bury rifles in the dirt. We bring not war but certainty. The crowd hissed in approval. Through the lens, Falk could see Zertatha's jaw flex as he spoke. He adjusted again, noting the oscillation of the shield's energy field. Every few seconds, it flickered just slightly, a pulsing breath, invisible to the untrained eye. He waited for that breath. His heart rate slowed. Wind, 2.3 east-northeast. Humidity, 38%. Drop, 3.2 centimeters over 1.9 kilometers. He didn't think about Earth, or stone, or the civilians hiding beneath crumbling cities. He thought about the shot. The pulse flickered. He fired. There was no sound, just a gentle recoil. The slug traveled silently through the air, punched through the flickering shield at its weakest point, and struck Zertoth just beneath the lower jaw. The commander's face exploded in a mist of cerulean vapor. The crowd froze, then screamed. Chaos erupted. Soldiers dove for cover. Drones launched skyward, scanning wildly. Alarms blared. The relays shut down mid-broadcast, leaving nothing but static. But Falk was already gone. He had moved the moment the shot fired, slipping backward through the ruins like smoke through fingers. He didn't run. He flowed. Every step pre-calculated, every escape vector prepared. Ground patrols flooded the region. They scanned every ridge, deployed air drones, even used shock pulse grenades across a 10-kilometer radius. They found nothing. No heat, no sound, no trace. Just one bullet hole, one dead commander, and a symbol carved into the wall of the northern ridge. A skull beneath a scope. Beneath it, in jagged lettering scorched by heat, at the edge of an old world, deep beneath an abandoned rail tunnel, Stone read the report with trembling fingers. The feed from Sector 14 closed the terminal. He never left. Outside, in the ash-blown wind, the silence felt different. The kind of silence that comes after the first domino falls. The kind of silence that waits for a second shot. Searchlights burned through the night, sweeping over shattered buildings and cratered roads. Ground soldiers marched in double patrols, their armor humming with detection grids. Drones swarmed the skies in endless rotations, mapping and remapping the landscape in overlapping passes. Every heat signature, every motion, every glint of metal was logged and flagged. And still, they found nothing. Commander Zertoth's death had shattered more than a skull. It cracked the illusion of absolute control the ground had so carefully cultivated. For the first time in nearly a year, Earth's resistance hadn't just survived a blow. They'd struck one. But the worst part, the part the alien command couldn't rationalize, was the silence. No claim, no broadcast, no victory signal. Just a body, a bullet, and a crude symbol etched into stone. Some believed it was a fluke. Others suspected a rogue orbital malfunction or a traitor within. But the whispers, even among the ground themselves, grew louder. They called him the Mud Ghost, the one who shoots without being seen. The Wraith, Commander Yarlik, Zertoth's successor, didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in patterns. He believed in logic. And his logic told him that the humans had deployed something different, something they hadn't seen before. Not a soldier, not a drone, something more primal. A killer. He issued new protocols. Every human in Sector 14 was to be interrogated. Every ruin scanned to bedrock. Satellite eyes were redirected, orbital lasers placed on immediate standby. And a special unit, the Nightclaws, was deployed from orbit to sweep the outer perimeter. Falk watched them from the edge of a burned-out ridge, motionless in his hide. He'd been tracking their patterns for 2 days. The Nightclaws were better than the usual patrols. Quieter, faster, disciplined. But not perfect. Their confidence still made them predictable. One of them urinated behind a broken wall each night at the same time. Tonight, Falk waited for it. At 2:17, the alien rounded the corner. Tall, armored, relaxed. Falk slipped from the shadow behind him, blade already moving. No sound, no scream, just a brief stutter breath, and then nothing. He left the body draped over a rebar spike and pressed the symbol into its chest plate with the heated barrel of his pistol. Same skull, same scope. By morning, the entire unit was in retreat. They didn't send another Nightclaw patrol into the canyon again. The humans never claimed to kill. Falk didn't need credit. He needed fear, because fear was a weapon, too. Major Stone watched the encrypted feeds from an underground relay bunker beneath the Appalachians. The alien chatter was frantic now. Fractured codes, emergency reroutes, entire sectors blacked out for containment. The Resistance hadn't done a thing since the Zertoth hit. Falk had done it all. He's escalating, Ramos said, reviewing reports. They're seeing his shadow in every corner. Some of them think Earth has built cloaking armor. Others think he's a genetically engineered hunter. Stone didn't respond. He was watching one particular transmission. Alien soldiers clustered in the bunker, voices trembling as they described finding two of their own impaled to the ceiling of Shuttle Port. A third had been left alive, blindfolded, breathing, tied to a chair. On his lap, Falk had left a message burned into steel with plasma charge. Still watching. They're falling apart, Ramos murmured. We didn't even ask him to go that far. Stone leaned forward. We didn't need to. That was the difference between a mission and a war. Falk wasn't running missions. He was teaching them how to fear again. For the next 8 days, Falk moved through the occupied zones like smoke on the wind. Every strike was surgical, one shot, one vanishing. A relay tower supervisor with half his face removed by kinetic impact. A drone command center disabled by a slug through its coolant core. A translator specialist pinned to a comms dish, eyes wide and mouth still open. No patterns, no schedules, just chaos, and always a symbol. The ground began posting triple guards at even the smallest installations. Supply convoys rerouted entirely. Some officers refused to leave their transports, ordering civilians to be rounded up in mass curfews to try and bait him out. But Falk never hit civilians. He never came when they expected. He only came when it would matter most. Commander Yarlick instituted a plan, Project Glass Eye, a new generation of aerial drones, using quantum imaging lenses and passive field sniffers, built to detect even the smallest anomaly over terrain. They'd already deployed 20 in a net across the outer territories. He was confident it would finally trap the sniper. Falk knew they were coming before they launched. He waited for one to drift over the ruins of a collapsed industrial yard. The drone's underside rotated, sensors scanning in 5 spectrums. It never saw the thin strand of monofilament, wires stretched across the broken support beams. The wire, invisible to light, was taut enough to catch a razor blade. When the drone passed over it, the wire snapped, releasing a spring-loaded explosive that burst directly into the drone's imaging cluster. The explosion wasn't massive, but it was precise. The drone spun out of control, crashed into the remains of a melted overpass, and disintegrated in flame. Ground Command issued an immediate shutdown of Project Glass Eye within 48 hours. Too expensive, too exposed, too late. Falk left another message burned into drone wreckage. Send more. Stone leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples as the latest report streamed in. He hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night, not because of stress, but because of hope. Hope was dangerous. It made you plan again. Is he trying to win this alone? Ramos asked quietly. Stone looked up. He's not trying to win. Then what? He's trying to make them lose. That was the difference. The Resistance had been trying to survive. Falk wasn't playing defense. He was eroding them from the inside out, reminding them that conquest didn't end with victory parades, that even empires could bleed, and bleed they did. Ground territory maps began shrinking, not because of invasion, but abandonment. Certain sectors were deemed haunted. Patrols refused to go near old battlefields. Morale dipped. Field commanders began executing their own soldiers for disobedience. Fear infected the chain of command like a virus, and all it had taken was one man. 3 days before the annual Ground Planetary Summit, a new directive was issued by Central Alien Command. Full evacuation of 6 human cities, total lockdown of Eastern Territory, and immediate relocation of critical communication assets off-world. Stone received the decrypted message via backdoor channel. He read it twice before showing Ramos. They're pulling out, Ramos whispered, stunned. They're not retreating yet, Stone said carefully. They're repositioning, trying to regroup, maybe planning something bigger. But for now, they're off balance. Because of him. Stone nodded, and because they started laughing, he stood up and walked to the old wall map, the same one he'd been updating by hand for years. He picked up a red marker, hesitated, then drew a large X over Sector 14. Last position. Didn't care. All he knew was that, and spoke to the silence. I'm still here. And the night, like always, gave no answer. The summit began under a blood-orange sky. The alien sun filtered through Earth's atmosphere like an accusation. In the distance, Relay Outpost 9 shimmered with hard light fields and automated defenses. Every inch of the compound pulsed with alien vigilance. Scanner drones floated in triplicate formations. Gun towers tracked birds mid-flight, and soldiers moved like clockwork, layered in reinforced exoplates. It was overkill. But after Zertuta's death, no one in ground command wanted to be next. Commander Halvrin stepped off his transport, four-legged and broad-shouldered, his gait stiff with disdain. He didn't believe in superstition. He didn't believe in ghosts or humans with rifles or primitive sharpshooters hiding in the dirt. But protocol demanded appearances, and so his squad circled the platform, eyes scanning the horizon. The summit was brief. A speech, a proclamation, and the ceremonial ignition of a new orbital relay tower. One meant to replace the now-destroyed systems in Sector 14. As Halvrin stepped forward, addressing the galaxy, the translation units hummed to life. "This is not a retreat," he declared, voice metallic to the translator's grid. "This is reorganization. Earth remains under our stewardship, and the rumors of a phantom killer." He paused. Something flickered in the corner of his visor. A distortion. Just wind? He blinked once. Behind him, the technicians froze. The tower's dish pulsed weakly. "These rumors," Halvin resumed, "are distractions, psychological residue from a species that cannot." The shot cut him in half. There was no sound until the second body dropped. Flesh and armor burst upward in a silent explosion. Halvrin's torso hit the relay controls, sending a brief arc of blue light into console. Screaming followed, then automatic fire, as the guard sprayed blindly into the cliffs. No target, no trail, just a crater where the commander's spine used to be. And one word carved into the foundation stone with a laser scoring tool. "Remember." An hour later, the Ground Orbital Command issued the first full sector withdrawal order since the invasion began. Not a skirmish, not a relocation, a full abandonment. The summit's live feed had spread faster than their sensors could intercept. Every alien officer who watched saw the shot, the blood, the message. Every commander knew that no amount of shielding had stopped the bullet. No perimeter had caught the ghost. He was real. He was here. And they were next. Panic rippled across command chains. Sector governors went dark, cutting all but internal comms. Patrols refused deployment to outer posts. Civilian populations, sensing weakness, began to stir. Cities once silent under ground occupation whispered again. Talk of uprising, of resistance, of something long thought lost. Hope. Major Stone sat in a dim room lit only by a field lantern and the hum of an old resistance radio. Reports flooded the table in handwritten notes, scrambled transmissions, intercepted feeds. It was chaos, but a good kind, the kind they hadn't tasted in years. He turned to Ramos, who stared blankly at a map filled with fresh red marks. Outposts abandoned, drones deactivated. They even shut down their command AI in Sao Paulo. Stone exhaled. It's happening, all because of one man. Stone shook his head. Not just the man, the myth. Ramos looked up, confused. He didn't just kill commanders, Stone said. He resurrected the idea that we can win. Every shot he took rewired their brains. And ours. He made fear our weapon again. But where is he now? Ramos asked. Stone didn't answer. In the charred outskirts of a village long since erased from any living map. Aaron Falk sat beneath a crumbling archway, hands coated in oil and powder. His rifle, cleaned and reassembled, rested beside him like an extension of his spine. He hadn't left a trail. He never did. Above him, the sky churned, ground transports racing to orbit. No pursuit, No counterstrike, just evacuation. He watched them go with the same cold stillness that had become his truth. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just listened. Birds again. Distant, hesitant, but present for the first time in years. His body ached. The years had taken their toll. There were wounds that would never fully heal, and blood in the ground he'd never reclaim. But he was still breathing, still watching, still loaded. He heard the crunch of footsteps behind him and turned his head slowly. A boy, barely 16, gangly and thin, stood just inside the archway. Dirty hands, makeshift boots, a rifle slung across his back, crude and probably useless. But his eyes were steady. "You're him," the boy said. Fox said nothing. "I saw the mark," the boy continued. "On the towers, on the drone wrecks, the skull. It's you, right?" Falk looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. The boy stepped forward. "I want to help. Teach me." Falk looked back toward the sky. The last of the transports were dots now. Maybe they'd return one day. Maybe not. But the next war wouldn't be fought with fleets. It would be fought with patience, with silence, with precision. He gestured for the boy to sit, and without another word, began to show him how to load a round. In the command chambers of the retreating ground fleet, fear calcified into doctrine. New recruits were shown footage of Falk's kills not as warnings, but as commandments. Never underestimate terrain. Never assume the human is gone. Never laugh at a shooter. The sniper had become more than a threat. He was a lesson, a scar, and as long as Earth rotated, somewhere beneath its mud and stone, they knew he waited, watching, breathing, a ghost that wouldn't rest. Not until every alien who laughed at Earth's shooters had learned why humanity once ruled war with nothing but a single man, a heartbeat, and a bullet,